All I see out here is love for Bitcoin, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin. That's all I see. And everyone has forgotten Ethereum. They're acting like it doesn't exist, but it's basically on a 52-week high and it's ripping. The question is it ready to explode and go back to all-time highs and go even higher? A lot of people are just fading Ethereum. They're acting like, it's not there or it's not as good. And it's a little ridiculous. I want to show you some data to show you guys that if you don't diversify properly, it's good to own Bitcoin, but if you also don't diversify behind it, you could be missing something enormous, just as big, I believe, as Bitcoin. Now, let's look at what's going to happen here. If you look at the max, this went to a little bit over $4,600. It's not too far. And by the way, it was only there for like over 4,000. Ethereum was there really not a very long period of time. Bitcoin was over 50,000, about 144 days last bull run. Ethereum was barely even over 4,000. I mean, it struggled to stay there. Every time it did, it went down. Part of that was the Ethereum Foundation dumping. Part of that was they dumped at the top, which is fine. But they also changed the tokenomics since then. No more are they basically proof of work. Now it's proof of stake. So there's a lot less inflation. In fact, it's now a deflationary token, which Bitcoin is not. That has to count for something to start with, right? You see this number of tokens circulating supply? Well, it's going down. Okay, I'm going to show you more data in a second. And if you look at this chart, this is getting back to its all-time highs. It's only, what, $1,000 away before it hits this very critical area. It's not that far away. It was barely up to 4,600. It was there for a millisecond and it came back down. Now, if we go to ultrasound money, which is basically what all the Ethereum information is, you can kind of see the inflation in Ethereum, and you can see that it's going down faster. It's becoming deflationary even faster. And that's because this bull run is just getting started. To just write that off, and I don't really care that it is deflationary. In fact, it doesn't even make a difference. Okay, if it was inflationary or deflationary, it didn't make a difference because that's not really what drives demand. Burning tokens doesn't drive demand. It makes less supply. If more demand comes in, it could have an effect, but generally just burning doesn't do anything. It's not as important, okay? So, but you can kind of see in the last 30 days, 17,000 less ETH. I think this is going to accelerate, number one, okay? So if you start looking at this, you're going to start noticing some factors, and you can play around with the burns, what the growth rate of the burns are. The burns were over a 7-day period, were actually pretty high. So you can kind of see what's going on. Now, see the projections and all the stuff and how much ETH. ETH could easily go below 120, maybe go down to even 119 million in the next 2 years because of the amount of demand that's coming in for it. Now, what is causing these burns? And like I said, I don't really care about these burns. I'm going to tell you guys what's going to actually push ETH up. I'm going to show you a screen in a second, show you what's going to do it. First of all, if you look at the burns, a lot of it's down here. A lot of it is through DeFi. And this is over a 7-day time frame. And I think we can go increase the time frame. Let's go to a 30-day time frame, right? So if you go to a 30-day time frame, DeFi burned 31,000 ETH, L2s to 10,000 ETH. Now, a lot of people saying that L2s are what's going to crush ETH. No, people forget ETH is the center of the crypto universe. They were the first smart contracts. They're a market leader. They created the smart contracts. To think that L2s and other L1s are magically just going to come out here and crush ETH, the crypto is ETH. Bitcoin has the Lightning Network that was created because it didn't have smart contracts, and they're trying to make it into a smart contract network. What I believe is going to happen is that ETH is also going to become a store of value like Bitcoin. It is going to become that for a reason I'm going to get into in a second, because it is the second ETF that will be launched. That is a fact. And guess what happens when billions of dollars of Wall Street and worldwide money come into it? It is also going to turn into store of value. And it has always been a store of value in many ways. It is already, yes, it has criticisms, the L2s and the other L1s and the competition, but being the center of the universe, being the language that most crypto EVM compatible is written in, you cannot ignore these things. The burns might not happen. The L2s might not, it might take some of its business, because you're going to see this happen down here, and you can kind of see this, leaderboards on the scoreboard and all that. So revenues used to be about 3 billion a year. Now they're about 1.8 billion based on what we're seeing. And part of that is, yes, people are going to the L2s, but this is what people forget. And I'm going to show you this data right here. First of all, this is the number of daily active users on the ETH network. You can see when it first started, when it was going, it was around 200,000, 100,000. And then during the bull run, it reached as high as about 700,000, had about 400,000 or 500,000 daily. Now it has 400,000 or 500,000 daily pretty much all the time. And the bull run is kind of just getting started. And these are your daily users. I had this big spike, went to 1.4 million. I don't remember what that was, but it was something. It was a couple projects probably did that. But when you start looking at the data, this data looks incredibly healthy. This is probably going to go well over 1 million during the bull run as we get going, well over 1 million daily users. But I'm going to keep going here. Look at the number of people, Ethereum unique addresses, basically. Okay, you start at 58 million, and now we're at 258 million. Think about that. And it is accelerating at a pretty nice clip. Just in 2023 began the year, you had 218 million, and now we're already at 258 million. I mean, my God, that's insane. It's 40 million more, 40 million wallets in a couple of months. I'm sorry, not a couple of months, since 2023. You know, and this was a lot of the bear market through here. It will just start to accelerate through here. To say that this is not going to work out and it's crap, all the L1s and L2s are going to, it's a bunch of bullshit. That's not a fact. What is going to happen is you're going to start to see the acceleration of people onboarding on the ETH. And that is what Vitalik said. He said, what's going to happen is we're getting ready to get up to 500 million and eventually 1 billion users onto ETH. We're getting ready for that. He's thinking at a scale no one else is really thinking of, because he's kind of there already in many ways. Now, the L2s, everyone says the L2s are going to destroy ETH and blah, 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 blah. Now, the L2s will take some of the business away, the gas fees away. But what people have to understand is if you're on Arbitrum, okay, if you're on Base, if you're in any of these other L2s, for the most part, most of them use Ethereum as gas, okay? And you're like, yes, but they take a little bit less and a lot less. And that's not the point. What's happening is you still have to go buy Ethereum. Imagine another 250, 300 million people, 1 billion people over the next couple of years having to own Ethereum to go into DeFi projects, to do their banking, to do this, to do that. That alone is the demand on top of the ETFs that no one is talking about. I have ETH on multiple chains. I have it on Base. I have it on Arbitrum. I have it on Optimism. I have it on all these other chains. And that's what everyone's going to need to do. ETH is the glue that binds everything. And the fact that people keep saying it's not good enough, it's this shit, it's crap, blah, 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 the L2s, the L1s, da, da, da. It's ridiculous. You just don't understand what's going on. And you just look at what Arbitrum is doing right now. Look at the explosive growth in Arbitrum. This is Arbitrum transaction count weekly. It's going up like crazy, 200 million now in a week. Arbitrum transaction count monthly. I mean, you can see these numbers are just exploding. Arbitrum active users weekly. It's over, look at this day, over 1 million, 2 weeks in a row. Arbitrum monthly users. It's probably higher than Ethereum's, over 2 million already. I mean, these numbers are explosive. Arbitrum new users weekly, again, huge, hundreds of thousands being added every week. Arbitrum new users monthly. I mean, enormous amounts. This all is good for ETH. That means 1 million people will need to buy ETH. Will need to use it in protocols and projects. Whether it burns or not is not important. It's the fact that the demand is there. Millions and millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people will have to buy ETH. We'll have to transact in ETH. We'll have to learn how to use ETH on a decentralized platforms. That is what everyone is missing. And it's ridiculous. And then you can see the gas used daily. And a lot of this gas, well, guess what? Burns ETH. You know, I think all of it burns ETH actually, because that's what they use. So this is exponentially going to keep going up. All right. All the data points to a very, very rosy picture. I believe what's going to happen is these ETFs are going to come for ETH. Billions of dollars are going to pour in. ETH is better tokenomics than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still adding every day 900 more Bitcoin, which is, by the way, like $50 million a day. You're like, oh, it's just 900 Bitcoin. It's not a lot. That's $50 million a day. A day. And then at the halving, it'll become $25 million a day. But that's if Bitcoin doesn't explode, which probably will explode in price. So it'll be something like $35 or $40 million a day eventually again. And eventually we probably reach 100,000, which when at that point, it'll be, again, $50 million a day of selling pressure. ETH doesn't have that selling pressure. Think about it. And you're like, well, it's not a big deal. It's just $50 million. And there's so much volume on Bitcoin. Well, there's a lot of volume on ETH. 50 million times 365 days. It's not a small amount. It's $18 billion, guys, of selling pressure. It's a lot. That's a lot. $18 billion that Ethereum doesn't have. So what do I think is going to happen? I think so many people are going to come into DeFi and all these new projects. I think Wall Street is going to come. The ETFs are going to come. I think all the money is going to come. Ethereum, unlike Bitcoin, which is printing tokens, Ethereum's not. In fact, it's deflationary, as you saw back here. As you can kind of see, it's slightly deflationary. And again, I don't think being deflationary is even a big deal, but it will actually accelerate and become even more deflationary. This number will drop below 120 million. And you're going to have the surging demand coming right through this thing. It's going to be the surging demand. I think 6,000 is the minimum this thing reaches. It's sometime in 2024, maybe late 2024 when the ETF is announced. I think realistically, we're looking anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 for its peak sometime in 2025. And certain things we can't see and foresee, depending on how big crypto gets and depending on how much hype is out there and all the other things that come along with the hype machine of crypto and Bitcoin. Ethereum's sitting right behind it. People who see Bitcoin go to 100,000, well, the first thing they do is look right below it. Let's buy ETH. That hasn't gone up enough. It becomes a store of value. It's very important to understand. Bitcoin is trying to become a network that Ethereum already is. Ethereum will try to become a store of value, which Bitcoin already is. These two tokens, they're kind of their symbiotic relationship. Okay? Nothing is ever going to become the next Bitcoin. Nothing will ever become the next Ethereum. Basically, crypto is Ethereum. DeFi is Ethereum. What they're doing is revolutionary, will continue to be revolutionary. They might not be the fastest. They might not be the best chain. Might not be any of those, but they don't need to be. They just need to do what they're doing. And you know what? If you would have bought at the bottom, you would have done a little bit over 2x already. And that's okay. Yes, there were other tokens that have done better. Absolutely. There are other tokens. But look at the size of this thing. It's $354 billion. Can this get to $1 billion, $1 trillion market cap like Bitcoin? Absolutely. Can Bitcoin get to a $2.5, $3 trillion market cap? Probably. They're tied together. They're locked together. And we also don't know where the real demand for Ethereum is going to come, where the killer apps are going to come, where mainstream comes flooding in, hundreds of millions of people. Well, if that happens, Ethereum is going to explode in ways we've never seen before. Would I rather own Ethereum or would I own Solana? You can always diversify. That's always a question you're going to always hear. Would you rather own that or BNB? You know, you can always diversify. You can own a little bit of all, and I do. I don't know if I own very much Solana. I own a lot more BNB, and I own AVAX, and I like AVAX, but AVAX has huge inflation, which is keeping it down, and you can kind of see. So there's good and bad to everything. Even Chainlink has inflation. Guess who doesn't? The best tokenomics probably out here is Ethereum and BNB. BNB has no inflation either. BNB is losing tokens also, but BNB has other issues being tied to Binance, and Binance has, other issues. Solana hasn't even moved barely this year. Ethereum has outperformed it, So when and it's Ethereum's also outperformed BNB. It is outperforming a lot of the major large tokens, and it's outperformed Cardano. It's outperformed XRP, So it's basically outperformed a lot of the stuff out there. To think it's not going to continue to outperform, continue to not melt faces and not explode in 2024 and 2025 shows the ignorance of the people out here who do not understand crypto, do not understand, give terrible advice. Many of these YouTubers give absolutely terrible advice. These are my feelings. I think I will be right. You are open to yours. Just look at the data is what I would say. Don't even take my word for it. Do your own research. But when you start looking at everything out there and the size, the scale of Ethereum, there is only one, and that's Bitcoin. These two are interlinked together. To me, you got to own a bag of both. They're interlinked. It is what it is. Hopefully the data was helpful for you guys to make up your own minds, see where you want to go with this. But I do believe ETH will be seen more and more as a store of value in 2024, and especially in 2025, will be just something people buy, they put in their retirement funds and parts of different crypto ETFs, and they forget about it. It's just what's going to happen. Bitcoin is showing the way. That's what's happening. Read the tea leaves. Read them. Ethereum will be changed in 2024. We will no longer look at it the same way once the ETFs come, and they will come. Anyway, guys, take care.